What's up, everyone? Joe the Psychologist here with a Horror Fiend TV, the Fiend Zone review of the movie The Substance.
Should always smile.
The movie is written and directed by Coralie Fargeat, and it stars Demi Moore as Elisabeth Sparkle, Margaret Qualley as Sue, and Dennis Quaid as Harvey. As a 51-year-old, soon to be 52 pretty soon, I have got to say I fucking love Demi's performance. She is 61 and she put herself out there in this role. So that is another reason to go see this movie. So Adam, my husband, who gets annoyed that I only pick horror movies for us to go see because I don't want to see anything that he wants to see, he tells me he wants to see The Substance. I kept my mouth shut. I wasn't about to tell him that he said, let's go see body horror. And if you went and saw this movie, well, you either hated it or you walked out like I did. Like I couldn't put in a lot of words together, speechless for the most part, but it was a fucking bonkers masterpiece. I mean, I really suggest you guys go out and see this movie. The performances by both Margaret and Demi is above there, especially for a horror movie. And it has got a lot of mixtures and nods to other directors. I mean, even though it's not horror, in some scenes, it gave me Terry Gilliam's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the cinematography, the use of color. This movie is beautiful, so you have to see it. The movie is divided into three sections, with the first part being Elisabeth. And Demi Moore plays Elisabeth Sparkles. She is an aging actress who is now a fitness, I guess, model, but she is basically trying to find her sparkle again. And as she is aging, she gets privy to a conversation that Harvey has while he is taking a piss in a really awkward camera where it's like in his face, and you know that Elisabeth is sitting in the stall and she hears him say that we need someone new. And this basically set Elisabeth into a downward spiral, especially after she had gotten fired. Elisabeth is then in a horrifying accident, and the fucking cinematography on this accident, the sound, it sounded so real and it looked so real. Anyways, so she ends up in the hospital, no broken bones, I mean, almost no scratch on her. And the nurse then inspects her spine the way that our spines, I don't know if they still do that in school, but it's the way that coaches or nurses used to check your spine back in the day, and says it's perfect. Well, when she leaves, he had handed her a flash drive that said The Substance with a phone number on it and a letter saying it changed my life. Well, Elisabeth basically searching for her sparkle again. Well, she decides to call the number and she goes to this shady ass place. I probably myself might have turned around, but she did not. So, this is why we do horror movies. And as she went in, she gets this package with instructions of step by step what you have to do, including the fact that you have to switch back every 7 days. For me, the movie around this part, it gave me some nods to Robert Zemeckis' Death Becomes Her, as well as Stuart Gordon's Reanimator, because again, those are body horrors. This movie is a bit of a comedy, which is why I can see Death Becomes Her kind of being a little nod that they threw in there. So she takes this vial and injects herself. And this is when I leaned into Adam, and I hate people who talk during a movie, but I leaned in because you got to see so much of Demi. And kudos and bravo to her. You know, women, men, we stay up there for a long time. Women, for some reason, nobody can show that as somebody is older, they're still beautiful. She literally showed every part of her. There's just one part I didn't got to see of her, but she showed every part of her, and she's beautiful. And she stood there as a proud 61-year-old woman saying, look at me, even though the movie itself is her wanting to get the younger self. So what does she do? Well, she injects herself with the solution, the activator. And when she does, whew, the fact that the spine was checked out, well, it's because the spine splits open and the younger self comes out through there. And this is where we end up meeting Sue. In the instructions, you're also told to remind yourself you're both still one person. Well, Sue, Elisabeth, starts to live her life and she goes for Elisabeth's job and she now becomes the new fitness craze and everyone loves Sue. And though at first, the contract was being followed, she did keep changing the 7 days. Well, Sue started getting greedy. And when she did so, well, that came at a cost. And the first thing that you got to see is after she went a little bit longer than 7 days, is Elisabeth's finger had aged. That shit looked petrified. So the changes to Elizabeth's body was what's going to happen. She made the phone call. She was reminded that they're supposed to switch, no exceptions. And anything that happens to your body, there's nothing that can reverse it. So it now starts becoming a battle between Sue and Elisabeth. The movie also gave me a little bit of a nod to the picture of Dorian Gray. There's a portrait of Elisabeth, this giant portrait that gets smashed early on, gets brought out. When there's a fight, it gets even more demolished. But not just that, Elizabeth's body itself was the portrait because the longer that Sue went past the 7 days, the more deformed that Elisabeth got. Demi's portrayal of her body falling apart and then her exacting revenge on Sue is where the movie goes into the black comedy. I fucking loved it. Again, I am here for Demi Moore's performance. When I went to go see this movie, I was thoroughly excited to seeing her back on the screen, and she fucking delivered this shit for me. Maybe not for some of y'all, but you know what? For me, she did. So, one of the things that she had done is that she would eat all this food, which pissed off Sue. And in a nod to Videodrome, she has this thing during one of her sections pop up on her ass, right? So when she's moving it along, she sticks her hand in her belly button. And if you think, when James got the gun out, well, she fucking pulled out a drumstick, died laughing at that. I thought yet another great nod to another body horror movie put in here. There's so many of them. You're going to pick them up, but they're done so wonderfully well. One of the funny parts in here is that both of them kept calling the number to complain about each other, only to be told, remember, you're still the same person. So they kept calling the number to bitch about each other, even though they're really bitching about each other. And when Elisabeth saw how deformed her body had become, she decided that she was going to terminate the substance. And in doing so, injected her to try to kill her. But then revived her, and now we have Sue and Elisabeth beating the fuck out of each other. And Sue ends up killing Elisabeth. Well, one of the other things that they needed was each other. And that included that for Sue to be able to live her 7 days, I think it was spinal fluid. They never really said it. At least I missed it. I saw it one time. I'm going to rewatch this a lot of times. But I think it was the spinal fluid. Well, Elisabeth dead, she doesn't have the spinal fluid, but she thought that she can still live on as Sue. And this is where we get a David Cronenberg basic reference. It's in there. It's body horror. You have to put it in there because what starts happening? Well, Sue starts falling apart. Just give me a second. I'm gonna need to take a quick shot for this. Yep. It's teeth. The teeth again. Thank God that the movie theater was empty because the two front seats in front of me took the brunt as I'm kicking as she's pulling out her teeth and even loses her ear. I hate teeth. I still loved it because it needed to be in here. It's body horror. The body's falling apart. So Sue gets the bright idea that, wait a minute, I can get a better version of myself. Now, the instructions that they were given is that the activator is only used once. So she decides to inject herself with the activator. And this is where we get to the third part, monstroelisasue. Yeah, when they showed monstroelisasue, it was not pretty. I have got to tell you, it was not pretty, and I loved it. It's body horror. It was deformed. Again, thought of other movies. I'm mentioning the movies, not knocking it. It's because this is showing respect for other movies and delivering your own fucking masterpiece. But so Monstro is getting ready for New Year's Eve because Sue was going to be the host for the New Year's Eve party. And she's putting on her dress. She's literally sticking the earrings into herself. It's not even earlobes, it's like sticking it onto herself. And then you see that on the back is Elisabeth. Her face is there in this horror, like horrified look, like in a constant screaming face. And they head over to the New Year's big old party. She, obviously, because of the way she looks, ends up cutting out the picture, the face, from the portrait, puts lipstick on it, and sticks it on her face, and then goes to the party. And when she gets up there, everybody's like staring at it. It's like, what the fuck are we looking at here? And it turns into a bloodbath. I mean, the movie went absolute bonkers. I knew that Adam, at this point, he was probably loving the movie and it might have taken him out. Me, I was all here for it. This shit went fucking crazy. Now, it was a metaphor. The whole scene, if you did not know, I'm not going to tell you. You can figure it out for yourself. But that whole scene was meant to represent something. And then you start seeing Monstro just slowly falling apart. And when it gets outside, yeah, this movie's awesome. I fucking love it. I'm going to rate this movie a 5. Again, I don't throw those out that very often when we rate them on our three corners of horror. This was a masterpiece. I walked out just thinking so much of the movie. Thoroughly surprised. Because of the fact that it got such great reviews over at cons, and I was reading a couple of things. I'm like, man, it's not gonna live up to the hype, but it did. It definitely did. It's going to be in the catalog of body horror. If you've not seen it, man, get out there and go see it. When it comes out, shit, buy this movie because I'm definitely gonna get myself a copy of this movie when it comes out. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow, get some updates. So I'll see you next time, either on my movies that fucked me up or our three corners of horror. You never know. I might pop up on another one of these Fiend Zone reviews. So until next time, ta ta for now.